There's some teams that's really made their way up in high school basketball for this season. Some surprises, especially in the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. You take a look at some of these teams that have really stepped up their game in the last year. So we're just going to take a segment and talk about teams on the rise in 2016, kind of this New Year's edition of high school basketball. Teams to look out for in 2016 that we may not have seen coming into this season. And looking in that Bloomfield Christmas tournament, teams that really stand out to me, Saxony Lutheran really stood out to me in that tournament. They got some great players there. I believe Kyle Williams there. Saxony Lutheran, a really good guard with length, stands at about 6'3", and there's a couple Williams kids actually on that team, look really good, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They play out of Class 3, and that's a team that hasn't really been in that mix in Class 3. You think of Class 3 here in Southeast Missouri, New Madrid, Charleston comes to mind, also Crothersville, but Saxony Lutheran hasn't ever been in that mix, but they're going to be a team to be reckoned with this year. And excuse me, almost had one coming on. But Saxony Lutheran really looks strong, and that could be a team that could come out of Class 3 this year here in Southeast Missouri. But we'll see. It's going to be some tough competition ahead for the Saxony Lutheran Crusaders. But they actually brought an undefeated record into that Christmas tournament and took one loss to Kennett in that semifinal. So they're going to look good going forward in that Class 3 here in Southeast Missouri. And what's so good about them, they play that 2-3 zone, and they're really long. They start about 2 or 3 kids at 6'3", and they're hard to penetrate, hard to really get those kind of penetration and dump-offs there against that zone. And they're going to be tough to deal with. Really looking good out of Saxony Lutheran heading into 2016. Also a team that really opened my eyes in that tournament is East Prairie. They had a pretty good run up to that tournament. Played some competitive games, especially with New Madrid. East Prairie playing out of Class 3. That's probably the only thing that really hurts them, playing that Class 3. You got to play up there with New Madrid, Charleston, Malden, and Saxony Lutheran potentially as well, but they got some fine talent on that team. Derez Tipler, one of the best freshmen in the area. He really come out in a big way in that tournament, averaged 21 a game, and really took over that game against Hayti in the first round. I think he had 16 points in the fourth quarter and had a big tournament, all-tournament team. Also, they got some other good players on that team too. Devers Jones, other guard for the East Prairie Eagles. Brett Ellis, a fine player. Probably thinking some others that I'm overlooking. But they got a fine team. They're not very deep. They only play about 7 players, eight at the most. Casey Knight's done a great job with that team and had a good tournament run and opened some eyes there, which I think they were seeded a little low in that tournament. They got seeded 10th, had a really great matchup with Hayti, but they probably played above their seed in that tournament and had a great showing. So that's a team I really look to have a good 2016 going forward. Other teams I'm looking at, Malden. I think Malden's going to start. They've had a pretty decent run up to this point, and their Christmas tournament they play good at times, and just they hit these stretches where they're just not productive in a certain stretches of the game. That Dexter game, they got down early and then pretty much played even with Dexter pretty much for probably half or 2/3 of that game, but just got a bad start and just couldn't make up for that deficit later on. But you can tell they're a team trying to figure out what their identity is. They got great presence down low with Robert Eisen, big kid at 6'5". They got some good guard play. Ned Lee's coming on big for the Green Wave. He had a great tournament. Ned Lee did, and also you've got some other talent there. You got some good ball handlers. That's what I like about Malden's team. They don't out front. They've got Malcolm McBride, also Kylis Thompson. They handle the ball well. They don't turn it over, and they got some good off guards. And Ned Lee, Reggie Reed, also a nice off guard. Shamadre Barber, he can kind of go inside and out. Great presence in the transition. Also on the drive to the basket. So they've got the tools to be a very good team this year. You can just tell when they're out there. It's like they haven't found the strength in their offense yet, but they can play some pretty good defense. That's a team I think will start to put things together. That, right now people probably overlooking Malden with the kind of season they've had so far, but I think as the season progresses, you'll see that team get better and better as the season goes on because they've got the tools there. It's just a matter of putting it together for the rest of the year. So there's quite a bit of season left. So come Boot Hill Conference tournament time, that could be a strong team by the end of the year. And we talked about South Pemiscot before the tournament, how they're going to be one of those better teams in Class 2. I still expect that. They're another one of those teams that have got all the tools in their lineup, play very good defense, and a very athletic team up and down. And also when you get them in the half court, that's where I think they struggle in that Bloomfield tournament. They've been able to play such a transition game so far this year that they've pretty much just overwhelmed their opponent playing transition ball. They got in that tournament, played a few teams that just slowed it down on Saxon Lutheran. They lost Saxon Lutheran in that quarterfinal. Saxon Lutheran doesn't really play an up-tempo style. They're working in the half court, controlling the ball, very efficient in their offense, and they've got great length on defense. I think that's what gave South Penn some trouble in that quarterfinal. So saw them get nipped there by Saxon Lutheran, and then that fifth place final with Bloomfield. I mean, Bloomfield is the ultimate ball control team, very efficient. They're only going to score about 40, 50 points a game. And then when South Penn's really, forced to play defense anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute and having to defend that perfect shot that Bloomfield's eventually going to get in their offense, I think that's what really slowed them down, got them out of sync, out of what they're used to doing, playing transition ball. And once they're playing defense that long and then going on offense, trying to speed things up, it's just a little out of sync for them. So I think they just ran into some opponents that were just bad matchups for them, but great preparation for them going forward to where they can, if they run into a Bloomfield later on in the year, in district play or what have you, I think they're going to be a little bit more prepared for that down the line. So still a good team there in South Penn, going to be dangerous for 2016. Bloomfield, I really like Bloomfield's team. They're a different team. They don't blow up a box score. You're not going to read the paper or watch your own YHC and see the Bloomfield score and just be like, man, they are just awesome. Because they're not going to score 70, 80 points a game unless they're just just certainly outclass their opponent. And they scored I think 79 in that first game with Richland, I believe. They just trounced Richland, but they're not a team that's just going to wow you throughout the season. They're going to win. They're going to be efficient. They're going to win, these 10, 15 point, these 10, 15 point leads you're going to see in the box scores. That's what you're going to see out of Bloomfield. But it seems like when they get a 5 or an 8 point lead, it seems like it's well in hand because they don't turn the ball over. They don't give their opponents, second, third chance opportunities. They're a pretty good rebounding team. They play really good defense. That's why when they're winning games 46-42, something like that, they can hold their opponents to 40 points and do what it takes on offense to score enough and come out with victory. They got some great talent on that team. Noah Vandevers, certainly their go-to guy, and they've actually played well at times when I think he actually fouled out of that South Pemiscot game, if I'm not mistaken, in the last few minutes. And they played well without him. They got a good balanced team. They'll play upwards to 9 kids. They got a deep bench. That means they can rotate those guys in, play good defense. Got a good trapping defense. They don't really get after it man-to-man, but they'll play that 2-3 zone, mix it up, come out and trap, lay off, and then come out and trap. Just keeps their opponent off balance, and they're a very efficient team. They don't turn the ball over, as I said. They got some good ball handlers. They got some good three-point shooters. Nathan Newell, Tyler Battles, Peyton Bell, those guys, Tim Hector. Got 4 or 5 guys that can shoot the ball from the outside. Even Noah Vanderberg can come out there and shoot from the outside, and they got good ball handlers. Just a good, efficient team there in Bloomfield, and That's the thing. You can't get down to them. You gotta get out in front of them, play with a lead, because if you're at a 5 or 6 point deficit, it seems like it's going to be a 10 point deficit to overcome, because it's hard to get the possessions to get the lead back. What it's going to take to get that lead, you need the possessions, and there's just not going to be as many possessions in a game when you're playing a team like Bloomfield. So it's a dangerous team, just because if you get down on them, it's going to be hard to come back on them if they got a 5 to 10 point lead on you. So Bloomfield's a team I like for 2016. Other teams I liked looking going forward, Gideon. I really like Gideon. They've had a good season early on. I know uh, they're going to have a different dynamic than other teams. Kenny Buchanan, head coach of the Gideon Bulldogs, had some brain swelling, and he's going to have to take some time to recover. And there's a chance he might not be back for the season, just to recover what he's went through. So I think Jordan Ellsworth, Jimmy Brees are taking the team over at this point going forward. And Jimmy Brees has been around the coaching ranks, and Jordan Ellsworth, the assistant's been around for quite some time too. So that team's going to pretty much keep it together going forward. But Gideon's got a really nice team going forward, especially in that Boot Hill Conference. I like them in that Boot Hill Conference for 2016. So it's looking good so far for the Gideon Bulldogs. Probably the team that's probably going to have the best 2016 ahead. It's got to be the Sikeston Bulldogs. They've been so dominant this year and looking to have a great 2016. They're just head and shoulders above everyone else in Southeast Missouri and even in that SEMO Conference this year. That SEMO Conference has been, excuse me, so competitive over the last few years, but I just think Sikeston's just head and shoulders above everyone else. They ran away with that SEMO Conference tournament first of the year, and I think the regular season is going to be theirs to take as well. And they're going to have a great run ahead. And an undefeated season's not out of the realm for them. I don't think they've taken a loss yet. So that might be in the works for them this year. They've just been that dominant so far this year, and I don't see anyone really getting in their way up ahead for 2016. So look for the Sikeston Bulldogs to have a great 2016 going forward. So there's some teams I like going forward for 2016. Some we may have not have seen come along, but it's been a great year of basketball. I think that's what, over the last year or two, we've seen teams that have struggled typically, traditionally, and starting to put some teams together. Starting to see some new coaches move around and put things together, and looking good. Looking good for high school basketball in Southeast Missouri. Probably this year, with the exception of Sikeston, we don't have that runaway great team that we've seen over the last handful of years, like Scott County Central or New Madrid or Charleston. We haven't seen some of those great teams, with it, like I said, the exception of Sikeston, but just more consistent play across the board from teams here in Southeast Missouri, which I think sets up for a great 2016.